There are this section of white people who don't want to have anything to do with black people at all.
They always got to come back down the mountain, typically with tools, and cause havoc on the people who are doing better than them elsewhere.
Stay up in the Ozarks because y'all got the complexion for that cold-ass weather.
I'm perplexed because we all know we're a bunch of sheep. The system was able to hoard a bunch of black people into things called projects.
Nothing has really changed except the time.
An Instagram model allegedly claimed she was abandoned in Turks and Caicos after refusing sexual advances by Deandre.
Why are you going to get on the plane and you don't have a return ticket?
Now, I think people just got to be honest. Nowadays in 2025, you got to say it. You got to say, hey, I'm going to buy you these tickets to Turks and Caicos. When you get here, we're Is that cool?
And why, in the year of the good Lord 2025, would you travel somewhere and not expect to be hunching?
What are y'all thoughts about 28 to 32 being a sweet spot for people to get hitched? Welcome, not to just yet another episode of the BLC Pod, but rather the season finale, the season 5 finale of the BLC Pod.
Yeah.
And I got all my people with me.
With me.
Ooh, yeah. Got all my people with me. Ooh, yeah. Come on, man. Stop playing with them. Yeah. Stop playing with them. You know what? I feel bad because maybe that's what was missing this entire time. You know what I'm saying? We had to drop the dead weight to get to the... I'm kidding, Delvin. We love you. I mean, some groups are good as a 5, but then sometimes you find the right harmony with the... I'm just playing, Delvin. We love you.
We miss
Delvin,
you.
my guy. He is doing his thug fizzle. Hopefully not on Carnival. So, Delvin, we miss you. But before we get into the show, because you can already see what type of time we are on, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, comment. A little birdie was telling me how she was having a tough time in the comment sections because some of y'all passport, red pill carrier brothers be a little aggressive in the chat. That made me lucky I got anyways, right? Don't forget. And we got the merch, y'all. Pew, 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 pew. Some emotional ears merch, new merch. Go ahead and check it out. A little birdie also told me we got some new merch ourselves coming in, so stay tuned for that. But even though I don't have all of my people with me, I do have the harmonizing 4, the 4 of us in the building. Pew, 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 pew. Season finale. What was Delvin thinking this entire time? But anyway, got to start with my good clean sis who be talking all that good clean or not so clean toxic mess in the building. S&M. What's happening?
Season 5 finale. Woo, woo, woo. So yes, I'm super excited for the finale. And I gotta admit that something resonated with me this week. And it was Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington basically said she do not take criticism from folks who she do not respect or admire. So for all those folks in the comments that had some criticism, go ahead and take that. Take that.
I see what you did there, S&M. That was fire. Speaking of fire, that's right. We got our girl TMB looking good in that Oprah.
Hey.
TMB, what's happening, girl?
Oh, just glad to be here on the season finale. And we saw you in the comments talking your little chitter chatter, but I'm so glad Miss Carrie could speak for us because we don't even see you. We don't see you. Looking forward to the convo today.
Absolutely. And my boy, my guy, I've known this brother for decades. He's had 3 shirt changes before we started today's show, but he finally got it right. My guy, Jay's in the building.
What up, y'all? What up? I'm hoping for not having a wardrobe malfunction, but I'm just been trying to get right all today. Like my throat's been bothering me, so I'm drinking tea. So I'm just trying to get adjusted. You know what I mean? I recognize that as a high value male, I got to raise my game. Burna Boy inspired me. You know what I'm saying? I'm married now, but help me if I ever be single again. Yes, like Burna Boy, you got to come with at least $2 million for me to even be interested in marrying you or whatever with you. Like I'm high value, ma'am. Match my value. Match my price. Go ahead, y'all.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate. I was going to speak about that, but Jay stole my thunder. I guess I'm left with Dr. Umar Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Because listen, I fuck with Dr. Umar. Okay, he's become a cultural meme, maybe even an icon, kinda, right? Mr. Pro Black, you know what I mean? Even though I ain't seen nothing about that school in like 111 years, I still believe in him. But bruh, I get it. Apparently they froze your account and you out here asking for money. It's just a bad look, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't got no friends. You ain't got no. And I mean, come on, dog. Like, it was just not a bad look. Listen, Dr. Umar, hit me up. I got something for you if you still need that. But, bruh, come on, man. You know what I mean? Prince of Pan Africanism. Is this what it's come down to? For real? It's not looking good, bro. Like, listen, the message here is if you're front facing, sometimes you got to fake it. Until you make it. You know what I mean? Because once the truth be revealed, it's like, all right, I'm not going to donate to him or the school. Which one is it? I'm so confused now. Thank you for confusing us, Dr. Umar. We'd love to have you on the pod, though, to talk about Black Pan-Africanism, but when you get your money right, because we can afford to have you. But anyways, with that being said, I mean, because you don't even charge niggas now. You know what I mean? Unless we're like a community organization, which we are. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. But what are we talking about? Because I've been ready to talk my talk this entire time. Who started? Because I'm ready.
It'll be me, and we're talking about donations and whatnot. So our first quick take is Deandre Ayton. Did I say his name right? I know I did this time. So I'm proud of myself. Kudos on the back. It only took 5 seasons to get it right. But anyways, with that being said, so an Instagram model allegedly claimed she was abandoned in Turks and Caicos after refusing sexual advances by Deandre. But however, later she ended up clarifying that it was not by him. He had no involvement. It was actually by his driver. And she emphasized that it was not by him. But that's not how the story came out first. The story came out first was that she was stranded. She had no money and she didn't have no way back. All because she said no to sex. What do y'all think about that?
Before we talk about it, because I feel like the revelation that Shorty clarified things, kind of got in the way of us having fun with the story, right? Because initially it was about, whether or not it was okay for him to leave Shorty, stranded if she wasn't giving up the box after he flew her out there. So we're going to still do that. But I just want to clarify on the front end where like the story took a little turn. But with the turn, I'm going to throw this out. There's a little extra. Now, the entitlement from the driver and the help of said superstar. So I think there's two conversations here, right? One, if in fact you fly somebody out to Turks and Caicos, she ain't giving up the box, would that be out of bounds? Is he wrong for that? Even though it's not the case here, but we're going to pretend like it is. And then two, the entitlement from the help, right? Because I guess the driver in this case felt like, hey, he was entitled to some box because he was driving her from the airport. So what are your thoughts? I just want to clarify because the story changed a little. Yeah, because apparently the driver or the help was the one who I guess turned her away, and she clarified it wasn't DeAndre. So yes, that kind of gets in the way of us having fun, but fuck that. We're going to still say DeAndre left Shorty because she wasn't giving the box. And bonus is that like the help being entitled, right? So what are your thoughts? Okay, just to piggyback us with him, but go ahead.
I mean, there's like some shades here. Like, at what point did the driver be like, "Yo, you ain't putting out. I'm leaving you here"? Was it when she first got there? You know what I mean? Was it fresh off the plane? He's like, "Hey, shorty, let's both get in the back seat." She's like, "Nah." He's like, "All right, you stay here." Like, when and where he told her that she was on her own for the trip kind of matters a little bit in the story for me. But I think the bigger thing here is, first, it's poor planning on her part. I blame her. Yes. I know you ladies think she's a victim and you think I'm blaming the victim, but I blame her. Here's why I blame her. Why are you going to go to way out of the country, right? Why are you going to get on the plane and you don't have money to get back and you don't have a return ticket? How do you agree to go out there and you have not secured your way back and you can't afford to get back on your own? Ma'am, if you can't afford to get back on your own, you better play nice till you can get to where you need to be. You understand what I'm saying? Women been doing it for years with ugly dudes, with dudes uglier and more out of shape than this dude. So please, park it. I haven't seen the driver. I don't know what he looked like. I'm not saying she should lower her standards. Her body, her choice. She made the choice to find another way home. Now, was the driver right? I don't know. He left her, and DeAndre was like, Psh.
I don't believe the whole driver smokescreen thing anyway. So I'm just going to give my original opinion. Like, if you fly somewhere, whether someone takes you, it's a vacation or anything, why would you go somewhere if you don't have money? I'm always perplexed by that. And why, in the year of the good Lord 2025, would you travel somewhere and not expect to be hunching? If this man has paid, you knew him before you traveled. Yes, the expectation is that you know what you're here for. And you're not here for a besties trip. It's not a promise ring trip. Like, yeah. So you get stranded. I don't believe the driver stranded you. I believe he did. And now you're doing damage control because you want to still get that D now that you're back in the States and it's cheaper to keep her.
I'm so confused. I'm so confused. And I think I'm going to cry because what are y'all talking about? Right? Because listen, I'm all for the shenanigans of if DeAndre left her stranded. But Jay said something about like, he don't blame her. How? Like, listen, let's just say for face value, what she said was correct. Right? I'm mad. Right? Let's say, for example, the help being entitled to ask where they do that at. He's fired immediately. If you working for me and you think because you're in my orbit, that somehow deserves you some ass, nigga, you ain't out there getting no rebounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not out there shooting them shots, being in the gym, working out and shit like that. You heard what Drake said. So my point is, like, if you were the help, the nerve of you to have that type of entitlement, and that's number one. So I'm just, again, if she said what she said, because she cleared it up. And she was ridiculing the public because her initial statement did say, oh, DeAndre security, something, didn't have sex with me, and something like that. So there was enough, even in her original statement, for what she had said afterwards to be true. And so I'm focused on the fucking entitlement from the fucking help. If you don't sit your ass down, I wish you would look at my work like that. You know what I'm saying? You at work. You know what I'm saying? That's my work. You're not supposed to look at my work at work. You know the fuck? So that's number one. Number two, if that was the case, of course she would have gave DeAndre some ass. She knew what time it was, and she had a lot of it to give. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right. So I'm not even going to put that on her. She know exactly what time it was. Tia, I'm saying if the fucking driver was cock blocking, he is fired. You know what I'm saying? That's number two. Number three, if DeAndre would have invited her, and let's say she got there, and then she's like, nah, I'm good, then why would she want to spin the block? Bitch, you ruined your chance the first time. You think you're going to have it. If I flew you out somewhere, you give me blue balls, right? And you think, oh, by making the story look better for me by saying it's the driver, you're going to get back in my good graces? Bitch, I ain't flying you nowhere ever. You know what I'm saying? I won't even walk across the street to hit it. You know what I'm saying? Bitch, you're going to have to walk across the street to be able to get some of this D, okay? This is Los Angeles Lakers speed, okay? So I'm sorry. I believe her a little bit for some reason, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? I agree with you, Tia. If a woman's flying to a spot, be with a baller, girl, what you doing? Shit, if DeAndre Ayton flew me out and I agreed, I'm giving him some. Okay, what the fuck are we talking about? Okay, see how there's a lot of caveats. If y'all slow the people in the back. I'm just saying, but I'll say this and I'll land. If I invite somebody halfway across the world or across the Caribbean Sea, it is implied, if we're vibing in any way, shape, or form, that we're fucking. Now, I think people just got to be honest. Nowadays in 2025, you got to say it. You got to say, hey, I'm going to buy you these tickets to Turks and Caicos. When you get here, we're fucking. Is that cool? You know what I'm saying? Growing up, that's not how you did it, because even saying that would turn a woman off. Y'all women be playing these funny games. Y'all want the truth, but not really, because y'all want to feel like a hoe, so I got to play the little game with you. Hey, you coming through? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's fair to say we all kind of agree to the same rules. If it's implied, like when you go to a restaurant, they don't tell you got to pay right now, but you know you got to pay before you leave. So if you're a woman or a man and you take a trip, you're gonna have to pay before you leave. Okay, and if you don't, the restaurant has every right to treat you like a vagabond that you are. Bitch, get down there and wash them goddamn dishes, you know, and do whatever other poor people do when they can't afford to pay the goddamn bill with your fucking broke, dusty ass. Go ahead,
So originally, when I first heard the story as well, my first thought was like, dang, that's messed up, because to be honest, the minute she said no and he fell, he decided, well, you know what? You knew what it is and you didn't proceed on your part of the bargain, because I'm pretty sure she understood what it was if that's what it was. And then when she came out and clarified, I'm like, oh shit, hold on a second. hold on a second. This is that audacity that people were talking about, the audacity of the driver to assume that he can get some, what I'm going to call background ass, right? Like he thought because Deandre may have already hit it, that now he had next. You know, he thought it was a team sport. And she wasn't playing on the team. She was like, nah, this ain't how we rocking. This ain't a team sport. This just he got the ball, you know, not team sport. We're not passing the ball to you. And so at first, I was like, damn, that's messed up with the Deandre. But then when I heard more about it, I was like, okay, the audacity. This is audacious. This guy was out of pocket. And to be honest, I would have fired his ass too. Like, yo, what the fuck? Your job was to drive her to the airport. Your job was to get her from point A to point B. And once she got to point B, to release her, not threaten her, or I'm not saying he threatened her, but not basically ask for some punani because you thought by default, because of my proximity, you deserved the punani. There's no proximity punani in this picture. And so I said, wow, that's amazing. But then it made me think about the larger picture of women being flown out and stranded. And I was like, first of all, sis, why you got no goddamn backup plan? You flew out there with no money? You flew out there with not even a credit card? Like, come on, stop it. You need to prep. You too grown not to have prep and have some extra money or any type of money. As a matter of fact, you don't got no ATM card. You can't get a wire withdrawal, a wire transfer. Like, what's going on? Come on. It's too many ways to secure the funds in this day and age for you not to come with any or have access to any. Matter of fact, you could have phoned a friend and be like, yo, I'm stranded. Can you somehow send me some cash or send me whatever's clever so I can get back? But once again, it's all about preparation. At the end of the day, we talk about safety and we talk about security, but the main person who's supposed to safe and secure you is you. So to the women who get flown out, please have that backup plan, because men can switch up at any time. It's not saying that's what he did, but men can switch up at any time. And same for the men who get flown out. Have a backup plan, because that woman could be like, you know what? I'm good. Thank you for your service, sir.
So listen, real quick before we pass it to Tia, I do want to say this though. The flight back home from Turks and Caicos is different than from Vegas or LA. You know, when you go international, because some people may have it like, I got a couple hundred, but they may not have a couple of thousand. So you may not have friends you could call like, hey girl, I was stranded in Turks and Caicos. You got an extra 1,500. So I'm just saying, be careful where you go when you get flew out. If it's domestic, you might be all right. International is the crapshoot. But go ahead. Speaking of traveling internationally, Tia.
That's what I do best. While I was gone, I heard about Kevin Gates and his wife, Drake. I was kind of disappointed to hear that after 12 years together, 9 or 10 years of marriage, that they were actually getting a divorce. I was happy to hear, however, that she had made sure that she filed that he could not file spousal support against her. And she definitely asked for child support and, of course, alimony. But I was curious because I think 7 years into the marriage, they've been ethically non-monogamous, or at least open. And I know he recently was married to, I don't know, what's her name? Brittany Renner or something like that, right? And then she was Muslim, and now she's not anymore now that they're separated.
She's
That's
still Muslim.
Story.
She's still Muslim. She just doesn't practice it with him anymore.
No, she took the hijab off. Now she's back, full cam girl.
So she's unemployed.
She's unemployed and she's back on OnlyFans. You know, that's kind of how it goes. It's like the catch-all right now. So I was curious because I'm thinking to myself, like, he had been, accused of cheating on her. He had been stepping out previously and then very openly talking about his sex life or his prowess online and in different kind of forums. So, like, did she stay around too long? Like, did they just milk this kind of for the PR or what it looked like? Because even when Brittany was around, I never really saw her around the space. So this all kind of interesting to me. What do you guys think?
Well, okay. I'm a little tapped into this story because I've paid attention to Dreka for a while now. And you said something that really resonated because you said, did she stay too long? This might be an example of, girl, you stayed too long, right? Because initially when they were together, like, all right, cool. I didn't really know much about Kevin Gates, but in the last 5 years, we'll say, he's exposed himself a lot. There's a lot about him that is peculiar to say the least, right? And I haven't seen her in that peculiarity, if that makes sense, right? I've seen her in family photos around Christmas time. So it did for a long time seem like they were just on some mode, hey, we're doing our own thing. We're still married. I guess in some way we're committed to each other. And I guess for her, it got to a point where it's like, bro, you out here wilding to a point where I can't continue to be in a relationship with you because from what I read, the Brittany Renner situation was like the last straw. Essentially, right? Because you out here talking about you married to this bitch. I'm not saying that she's a bitch. I'm saying that's probably what she's thinking. You know what I mean? And you out here gallivanting with her. You got me out here looking a certain type of way. And we talked about it last episode. There's certain things people will be willing to put up with. And I think for her, she was like, oh, this is the bitch you're fucking with? I'm good on that, right? And it's ironic that she would feel that way about him, maybe because of her, because now I'm looking at her feeling some type of way about her because of him. Right? Because, like I said, he's exposed himself to be a little peculiar in a lot of ways. I mean, listen, his music is cool. I wonder how he's still relevant. I mean, I guess apparently people still like some of his music, but like as a person, as a personality, how he purports himself, he does seem to have some charisma or riz, as people call it. But the rest of him is like, ugh. Like some of the stuff he talks about is like, for real, fam? You could have kept that shit to yourself, my G, unless you about to start a cult. So, I mean, I'll conclude by saying, listen, I'm happy that Dreka finally got her wits about her. You know what I mean? She's a lovely young lady. I think men, when we talk about women who are open-minded to a certain thing, who are willing to follow leadership or whatever, she seemed to have exhibited those things. But the fact that she was him would probably maybe give the next dude some question, unless he's a fan or a groupie, in terms of like, what's up with you, shorty? Like, you seem one way, but you was over there with that. Right. And so maybe the saving grace for her was that it just seems like for the last few years, they haven't been together. So maybe the stench of him can kind of wear off of her a little faster. But let this be a lesson to all the women out there. Listen, people change in relationships. We get that. But sometimes you got to know when to push that ripcord. You dig what I'm saying? Because I think there was a point that the rest of us saw it. And maybe she eventually took, Brittany Renner for her to see it too. And so, hey, girl. I mean, if you need somebody to talk to, a little shoulder to cry on. You know what I mean? But go ahead. Yeah, I'm just here to help. That's it. Go ahead.
I love it. You're here.
917. But go ahead.
Not you adding her to the harem. So this story kind of took me by surprise because, to be honest, I thought he was married to Brittany because that's the last thing I heard about this dude. And I was like, wait, who the hell is this? And it turns out, this was his original wife. And to be honest, his only wife, because Brittany was dropped like a bad habit, to be honest. And so I was really surprised and I thought about it and I was like, wow, so let me get this straight. She rode with this dude through all his shenanigans because before he even got with Brittany, he was on some shenanigans. And so that's when he got with her and she was supposed to be all Muslim and whatnot. I'm like, oh, wow, he must really change his life around. Is he a Muslim as well? Is this words? Like, is this a transformation that is occurring? And it turns out, nope, he was still on some fuck shit. And so for me, I think this is a conversation about, was she ride or die? In regards to your question, did she stay too long? Hell yeah, she stayed too long. And I think she stayed too long because she was under the guise of ride or die, because in the rap community, they're always talking about the ride or die female, the ride or die chick. You know what I'm saying? The bottom one, the one who's down for whatever and whenever, however's clever. And I think that's what she was trying to portray somewhat, so that she can be there for her man, so she can uplift her man, so she can support her man. And then he just kept embarrassing her. One thing after another. And even when they opened up the relationship, apparently, it was like, okay, now this is the last straw. You're disrespecting me. And it became a matter of, what does she want? Is her peace more valuable than public perception? And at this point, it was like her peace needed to be more valuable than public perception, because public perception got her looking like a fool and a clown. If you look at the fact that he talking about he had this other wife who he once again dropped like a bad habit. And so I think that in some cases, and while I'm actually very pro-marriage and support marriage, I think that in some cases, divorce don't necessarily equate to being a failure. It can just be a correction of an action that you can course correct and then move on with your life, because this kind of left a stain on her, but just a little bit, not too much. But it does make you question some things, especially the part where you ask, did she stay too long? And more importantly, why did she stay that long? I would love for her to come on the show, not to get added to your harem, Nick, but to answer that question.
The internet is undefeated. One, because the internet is brilliant and it's cruel and it gives no fucks about anything, but also because the internet will switch sides on you in a minute. For instance, we say we want a ride or die chick, right? And we say, man, she got to hold him down while he going through whatever he going through. And then at the end of the relationship, we're like, oh, she stayed too long. But I personally don't think she deserves criticism in this moment. I think what she deserves in this moment is some applause. I'm going to tell you why I think she deserves some applause. Because she did ride with him, right? She rode out until... So a lot of times in circles, when you have an open marriage, a lot of times the other spouse asks a very simple request. And that is, do not embarrass me. Do not embarrass me. Don't make me look crazy. Don't make me look stupid. Do not show the world that you do not have regard for me if that is the case. The world needs to always feel like you have regard for me. And I don't think he did that. I think she deserves some credit for giving him a blank space to express himself, even express himself in ways that the industry and the public may not even have appreciated, kind of like Kanye and Kim, right? When whatever. So I dig that. I dig that she gave him the space to express himself and to evolve and to grow. And then when they grew too far apart for the distance to make sense, she bounced. I don't think it lowers her stock. I think what it says is, here is a woman who is not swayed by public opinion. When she picks a man, she's going to be with that man until she deems it no longer in her best interest. That is a mature queen. I salute you, girl. Look, we've all been in relationships longer than we thought we should have. And that's usually the decision that we make after it's over. Hindsight is always 2020. But when you're in that relationship and you're choosing to stick it out, even when this person's claiming to be married to somebody else, and you're sticking it out and you're doing what you got to do, nobody should have anything but respect for you and applaud you as you move on. I hope the next man that you find is further along in his development so that you don't have to experience as much growth with him that changes who he is. But it's still time for you, girl. You're beautiful. You'll find it.
I'm surprised to hear that response from you, Jay. I don't think I thought that was the angle that you were going, but I'm here for it. Yes, I kind of agree. I think, I'll go into my therapy bag just a little bit. Like, we all have attachment issues and styles. And I think that we take from the fact that he was Muslim, and probably they had a conversation about a poly relationship because of that. Now, who knows if it came when the kids came, or did it come when they got married and he wanted to still be tapping and tipping? Who knows? But I think it was something that she agreed to on a religious basis, but she also converted to Islam when she married him as well, just much like Brittany did. So I don't want to think that he was out just wilding. I think it was an agreement at some point. But I'm glad that she knew that, at this point, whether it was Brittany or something else going on between them, because if you watch her publicly, she's been like really solo in her magazine shoots and her interviews. She's been literally out there by herself. And so I agree kind of what S&M said about, him leaving a little bit of a stain, because sometimes you can date somebody that's not necessarily a representation of who people think you are. But, love is bigger than that. The heart doesn't think what the mind thinks. And so I'm glad that she made the decision to love herself most at this point. And so I wish her the best.
So listen, before we go S&M to the next one, I do want to say, Jay, you swayed me. I do want to say that this might be a first here on the BLC Pod. You swayed me with your argument, right? Except for the part about like, no, because I was with you in terms of like, we should applaud that. She did give it the time, and but what I disagree with you on, because I've paid close attention to her, was there were signs of this way before this Brittany Renner thing, right? When you're talking about like being in a relationship by yourself, to Tia's point, that's what she's basically been showing us on socials for this entire time. You wouldn't even remember or know that she was married, because she's been like literally like living her own separate life. So I'm saying, like, I agree with you. But if it gets to the point where niggas don't know you married for real, then there's probably more there. It didn't take Brittany Renner for her to recognize this. And people take for granted that, like, life is not promised. Y'all be wasting time on motherfuckers that you been already knew was not going to be it for you. So while I salute her for holding steadfast, I do agree. That's a good trait, but not for everybody. And when you look at him, you have to question, girl, did you not see the things that we've all been seeing this entire fucking time? So yeah, that's the only part I'll push you back. But you had me though. You had me with showing her a little bit more grace. Thank you for that, Jay. Not your camera all the way off with him. He was so excited.
I'm discombobulated. I'm together now, though.
So shocked.
He was shocked. Tia was even
His
shocked.
camera was jumping for joy with him.
Right.
He was like, what? All right,
Yeah.
we're back on. We got our heads to battles now. Let's go.
So you know what? I wonder if Kevin Gates going to find himself on the T app, but maybe not, because his shenanigans have been 100% in the public. So he may not need to be on that T app. So last week I talked briefly or mentioned the T app and what it was. And so just as a recap, for those who don't know, and I'm pretty sure a lot of folks do know now, the T app was a woman-only app and it's gone viral. It's top in the US App Store. And so basically users can post anonymous reviews about allegations pertaining to men. And you know what those allegations may be. But anyways, with that being said, they actually have access to AI-powered background checks for a subscription fee and everything for the low of $15 a month. So for $15 a month, I can spread my tea and get a background check on you. So with that being said, there has been some concerns though. And you know what those concerns are? It appears to be marketing to Black people. And while they do have some pictures of other races, the majority of the picture seems to market to Black people. And so my question to you, is this the modern day Blaxploitation? And are we once again dragging ourselves down into the mud for the white man's profit?
Go ahead, Tia. I mean, because this app was made for you. This app was made for your kind, right? Black
My
women.
kind.
Yes, Black women who might have some type of criticism, or I'm just saying, like S&M laid
I
it out.
would never place a partner or a former partner on an app like this, sir. I
Okay.
don't get in the mud with pigs. I don't do that. And here's the reason why. Because it's messy, it's tacky, it's kind of petty, and it's bitter. When you have developers that are of a different race and possibly socioeconomic status, and then they create things that are targeted towards certain types of people to exploit them stereotypically, and we fall into that. I think that Black people, we have a tendency just to be sheep sometimes, and this app is kind of a part of that. I think a long time ago on Facebook there was this thing like the little games or questions that they asked were done to see how many people would actually start the new trend or pick up the new trend or whatever it was, and we commonly fall for the okey doke. And I think this is one of those things. Like this white man created this app. He's charging you $15 a month to be messy and gossip. And it's gonna lead to people. It already has here in the Bay Area. Somebody was killed over it. Like literally the first week it came out, a man murdered his girlfriend or unalived her and then unalived himself as well. Like this is dangerous to play with. And I think we take it so lightheartedly because we think that people will just let it go. But we're literally exposing past relationships, whether the sex was good, what kind of man they are. And of course, these men are upset that you put their picture and their whole bio and your opinion there, and they can't even defend themselves. So, if maybe in my 20s, I would have found it entertaining, but at this point, it's just like, I see it causing way too many issues more than just being an app for entertainment purposes, because there's groups on Facebook that already do this for free, ladies. I don't know why you'd be paying, but the Is This Your Man group exists everywhere, and they be posting.
I'm glad Tia brought that up because I was going to mention are we dating the same guy Facebook groups? There's one in like every state. My wife put me onto it. I don't know why she was on there. Like she she like messy sometimes. Anyway, long story short. But anyway, so on the sites, and I'm assuming on the app too, people post, "Oh, I'm dating this guy. What do you guys think?" And then other people anonymously say, "Oh, I dated him, girl. He's cheap, or he comes quick, or he ghosted me after the first date, or he married with another family 2 streets over." And you get all of these narratives that nobody can really confirm or deny. They could have just been based off somebody carefully like cyber stalking a person and looking at their pictures going, "Girl, don't he drive a red car? Yeah, that's him, girl. He been talking to me for 3 days. He in my inbox right now." You're getting all of this yapping, and you can't confirm any of it. And relationships are being destroyed. And then what really got me was this. First, I don't think that is an effective way to vet a person. I think if you don't have good character judgment, good discernment, that's where you should be working. You should not be getting other people you don't know to vet people that you just met. It's weird. Okay. Secondly, why they get mad when they get hacked and all the information get out? I'm sorry. It was cool, people, when y'all were talking about people and they couldn't, and you were doxing them and you were putting them all out there and they could not defend themselves. They couldn't speak for themselves. They didn't even know they were a topic of conversation. Now, you people who actually went to the app and you subscribe to be a part of this foolishness to keep this culture of back talking and backbiting and pettiness going on, y'all mad because y'all got exposed? Isn't that karma? y'all should know. I mean, karma's a bitch. I would think y'all to be well acquainted.
Were you just calling women the B word? Wow.
Oh, I was calling the catty women who be saying stuff that's not even true and hating on guys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I
no,
see.
1,000%.
Yeah,
1,000%.
maybe
I
that.
feel you on that, except for the women who are telling the truth, right? Because those women would not be that, because you're saying
That's
they're
true.
lying, right? I got you. Hey, listen, I'm just trying to give you an out, my brother. I got your back. First of all, I want to push back on hate for the founder. And maybe because I'm a founder myself, and I get that because he might be a different ethnicity or whatever he is or she is, whoever they are, I get that we may look at it as exploitation. But the thing is, exploitation in and of itself is not a bad word. I know that we may think it is. No, dead ass. Like, so for example, when you're in commerce, there's a lot of exploitation, right? There's a lot of, when you do something for the sake of commerce in a way, like it's exploiting it. Right. So I know that the word itself has a negative connotation. So when I'm saying, for me, when I hear that word, I don't automatically assume the negative connotation in that. And the reason why is because as business people, entrepreneurs, founders, our job is either to solve problems or to create things that people want and or need. Right? Sometimes it's not a thing that you need. We don't need social media necessarily. We want it enough to spend so much time on it. So somebody invents an app, most of which we're on, like social media, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. Yes, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are exploiting us when they use our data and allow ad agencies to promote to us. So I get that this is different. Why? Because it targets Black women who, let's be honest, are easy to target, right? The Democratic Party knows how to do so, right? And so a guy who says, you know what, I'm going to create an app because I hear all this gender war conversations and I know that Black women are not going to be accountable for shit. So why don't I create an app that will allow them to point the finger as much as they want to, right? And Tia said, why would they pay $15? Well, for that reason, right? Like, I get to point the finger at all the guys who did me wrong and all the ways that he is just subpar and not once have to pay, because you have to pay a therapist for that, right? For that accountability. So I can't be mad that the founder found a product and a market fit. That's what it's called, a product market fit. You know what I'm saying? Like, shame on him for not being able to protect these women's identities, because I think any app founder has to, especially in 2025, be mindful of those types of security breaches. So shame on him for that, but not shame on him for coming up with something that apparently caught wildfire enough for us to be talking about it. His marketing plan was fire. His target. And let me talk about that a little bit too, right? Because I'm a tech founder and I have a product. And yes, I identified a market. Just because you're identified as a market is not a bad thing. Sometimes people recognize this group has a need or a want and I can solve it. You know what I'm saying? I think the wrong thing is, how transparent or easy is it for people to hack us or hack our culture or hack what we're into, right? Well, it's really easy because we've been selling the culture and us a very long time before social media, right? Like hip hop, for example, has long since been corrupted. It's not ours. We participated. We think that we control it on some level, but the truth is we've long since sold that off. So yeah, sorry to break it to y'all. All this shit is exploitive, is what I'm saying. So I'm not gonna get mad at him, right? And I'm with Jay. Like, if I know that you get off on pointing the finger, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do so and make money off your dumb ass. You know what's funny? You can be spending that money on a therapist. It's like $40 with, a copay, but whatever. You'd rather just be on a white man's app. I think literally in this case, to just talk your talk. And I'm not mad at you for that. I just don't want us blaming the problem solvers. We need business people to come up with solutions and things that we want, because what else would we do with our time? What, be productive? Self-improvement? The nerve of us to expect to do that with our time. And oh, by the way, there are other apps that you can do that. But if you're on this app, chances are you're probably not on those apps. And I think it says a lot more about the people who are on these apps than it does the founder or his investors, for that matter, because shit, where can I get in at? You know what I'm saying? Because we all know people have long since been profiting off the backs of Black women, even the ones they let profit off of them, because they think it works to their benefit. But I'm going to let y'all go ahead and have it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, holler at me. Let's get the security breaches together. But go ahead, Esther.
Okay, so I was rocking with most of it, but then as usual, we can't rock anymore. You just swerve. And I'm just like, how far will he go before he swerves off this cliff? And, and at this point, I don't even know. I'm just like, I think you just keep a parachute nearby at this point. And so, because for me, I was looking at this, and initially my issue was that it did target Black men in particular, and which meant the target audience was Black women. Because I looked through the pictures for the marketing and so forth, and I understand they did identify that audience. The selling point was that it was for women, meaning all women. But in the end, all the pictures were Black men. And to be honest, I was offended by the fact that this was what they decided to go with, because basically it fed into every single narrative. But you're right, it fed into the gender war. He managed to find a way to profit off the gender war, and I can't fault him for that, but I kind of fault us for it, because at some point we have to recognize that we can't keep uplifting other companies off our backs. So, for example, it actually reminded me of when Tubi first came out, right? Or not even Tubi, but UPN a long time ago. You guys remember UPN and how UPN had all these Black shows, and then the minute that they got this huge audience, guess what? The Black shows started slowly disappearing until they weren't there anymore. And then they merged with Fox, I believe it was. And so it's like, once again, we're seeing the exact same pattern repeat itself, but we never have the opportunity, as if we're too slow to say, oh, this pattern looks familiar. Because you know why? Because we have a tendency to be self-serving. And in this case, the self-serving was, hey, I want to shit on somebody else. And to me, this was a major setback for women in general, not just Black women, but women in general. Because if you're truly empowered and we walk around saying that we're so empowered and we're this and we're that, then empowered women don't need to weaponize technology, right? If anything, all we do is set our standards, set our boundaries, and then we just exit. We don't have to go through all the shenanigans, because it does give, what Tia said, a little bit of bitterness out there, if not a whole lot of bitterness. Because at the end of the day, you still chose this dude. And once you decide to exit quietly, exit gracefully, and leave it to the next person. Because just because he have been trash to you doesn't mean he's going to be trash to the next person. So why are you setting this person up for failure because y'all two didn't connect? And I think that's a major disservice to the Black women and Black men, but in general. But I get it, because guess what? Salacious scandals sell. And that's what this is. This is just more scandals, but scandal at your fingertips. And I can participate. Oh, snap. It's like when Starbucks came out and everybody went and got the Starbucks app and was like, ooh, I can get stars. Ooh, I can get points for this. Oh, and except there's no $15 subscription charge, because I don't know why you would pay for that. But I guess because it includes the background check. But why you need this background check? I'm confused about that as well. But regardless, I understand the so-called intent, though. The so-called intent was about protecting women. And under the guise of protecting women, it became, hey, this is for your safety. We're putting you on to these bad actors and bad characters. And then it morphed into this bullshit that it is now, which is just basically a blame game rag, right? A blame game app. He did this, or blah, 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 blah. And guess what happened? The men responded on Reddit. And they have their own. Oh, so-and-so put this on the app. Guess what? Let me go ahead and air her laundry too. And so now we're even further into the mire, into the mud, into this gender war. So it didn't accomplish anything but get some folks richer. And I support getting richer, because one day, I assume all of us want to get rich. And as some people on this panel, we're all business owners and whatnot. And so we're trying to get to where we need to go. And he found this niche and he went into it and moved accordingly. I would just say this, though, to the women who are continuing to use this app, despite the numerous security breaches that have occurred. It was hacked within the first week. That means there was no protocols. He did not have a zero trust foundation, or his network's not built in with any type of security in any shape, way, or form. But regardless of all that, would you want your brother on this app? Would you want your son on this app? How would you feel if it's your relative that somebody put on blast on this app? And then in return, how would you feel knowing that your daughter may be on this app? Matter of fact, some of these mamas out here scandalous as hell. Your grandmama may be on the app on Reddit because she done been fucking her daughter's man, got pregnant. But anyways, all this to say, be careful what you put out there, because reaping what you sow is a real thing. And if you don't want to sow something negatively, then don't put all that negativity and toxicity into the world. And that's what I'm going to land with.
It was interesting to me because guys went to Reddit to do their thing, right? Which made me question why someone wouldn't come up with their own version of an app where men can kind of talk about their experiences. And then it hit me like, maybe men wouldn't pay for that. Right? Which then again is interesting if you talk about the difference between men and women, right? Like a guy could not come up with an idea that would sell us on doing it because for some reason, number one, it wouldn't make sense for us to do that. He was like, why am I going to pay $15? Like, just because I air out Stephanie doesn't mean the other people on this app even know who Stephanie is. You know why? Because most of us know that sometimes the Stephanies of the world can go into the whole protection program, right? No matter how much we try to air her out, right? She gonna pop up somewhere with a new identity, using shea butter with natural hair. And it's like, who is this bitch? Like, where did she come from? You know? So at the end of the day, I just thought that was interesting in terms of why men may not. But in all seriousness, though, because S&M mentioned the whole thing about security and safety, I do get that sometimes you can have an idea and people can just use it for whatever they want to use it for, right? Like Clubhouse, for example. I don't think Clubhouse was what it eventually became and part of the reason it died, right? It was an app that other founders and people were using it for different reasons. Celebrities were using it. And then eventually you let the others in. And then unfortunately, one bad apple turns into a million that ruins the entire bunch. You dig what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily blame the founder. Again, I do think that there is, because matter of fact, one of our previous hosts thought about creating something that was around creating safety for women. Right now, it may not have been like salacious in terms of telling your business, but clearly safety. If a guy is a creep, if a guy is doing certain things, I can see there's value in that, right? In the same way, I mean, I think maybe more frivolously, guys talk so much about body counts and we joke about hofaxes, right? I mean, if there was a way to actually verify it, would there be value there? Right? So there's a developer out there at the sound of my voice. Call me. You know what I'm saying? Why should this guy be the only guy making money off of our dysfunction? You know what I'm saying? I'll let your boy. But go ahead.
I will agree that all business is exploitation, but I think it's at our detriment. And I wish that at some point we would just say, we ain't gonna fuck with that. And I think it also is clear that it's not geared towards men because this is not typical man shit, right? This is not something that men do. And I think the emotional component of women leads us to do these emotionally charged things. And men don't necessarily have time, whether it be ADD, attention, focus. Y'all are not about to open the app and pay $15. Y'all not going to even care enough to background check the horrors that you're with. So my question
Facts.
is, how many background checks are you doing in a month that I have to pay the membership fee? Give me the free version where I can scroll and laugh. I don't need to pay because how many niggas do I got? I got 2 per month. I need to do. That's like excessive to me. It's like let me add on to the stupidity of this and just make you more of a fool. Give me your money. But yeah, I all business is exploitation. I get that. But then when it's based around stereotypical tropes and we fall into them, I could be mad and not mad at the same time because all money ain't good money, but at least I'd respect it if it was circling through our neighborhood and not theirs.
I love that. Circling through our neighborhood and not theirs. The one of the things I actually wanted to mention as well was the fact that when we talk about, to me, this seems like a digital witch hunt, by the way. And when we start doing digital witch hunts, and it leads to digital violence, which in turn leads to real life violence. And I think that's something that we have to consider because you guys remember all the cases with cyberbullying where folks were like killing themselves and killing other people because they were being bullied via cyber. And this is no different than cyberbullying to me, regardless if you're saying you're waking it up to whatever, letting people know the ins and outs of a particular person, right? And so I think that's something else that we need to be considerate of when we engage in these type of activities because we never know what the end result is going to be. And that end result may end up with somebody dead. And so we want to be careful of that. But I also want to say that, Tia, you gave the men a whole lot of credit about not putting an app out there because while they may not have put an app out there, they sure did run Reddit and did their own version, the free version of it. So I'm going to say you gave them a lot of credit, but they was emotional and they went and did the free version and went ahead and, and
Because they
basically
cheap.
retaliated against the women. So
Maybe it's
let's
the
not
broke
say they
ones.
not emotional. We had a whole episode talking about men can be emotional too. It's okay for them to be emotional.
I agree.
Look, the men were just communicating about what was going on, and we had the good foresight not to spend money on that, right? We, however, are a little more discerning about where we spend our money, right? Because not everybody who, for instance, so let me pivot a little bit because I was thinking about how someone was saying, it's kind of weird that the person who founded this particular site was a white person and they were doing this thing, or they weren't black. And they were doing this thing that did not seem to be beneficial for the culture. And like, why are you meddling in our culture with adverse intent, right? And then it got me thinking about this other story about how there are this section of white people who don't want to have anything to do with black people at all, right? They want to leave us out of their business completely, not just us, any LGBTQIA, any Jews, any non-white, non-Christian person is not permitted to live in a certain town. They created a whites only town. So this is like a step beyond sundown, I guess. So, the news isn't really talking about this. I think the town's been around for years. The reason it's becoming news again is because this town is now thinking they're going to spread to another state. They were in the Ozark Mountains, right? And now they want to go, I think, to Missouri. So, there's some talk about whether or not they should spread and what does it mean if it's legal. And just to give you guys some context, the way they're doing it is because it is illegal to discriminate on housing. What they're doing is they're selling a private membership to a club that owns the land. And because you are a member of the club, they're not selling you housing, they're selling you access to the grounds of the club, which can discriminate based on whatever they want to discriminate on. It's a very gray area that they're working in right now. The law isn't very specific in how they're doing it. So it's really very, very interesting. My question to you all is, just speaking for the culture, should we be inspired or should we be incensed? Is this something to for us to go, man, we should have our own cities? Or should we be like, look at that. They done burned down Black Wall Street. Now they're going to go get their own thing. What y'all think?
I love that for them. I do. I would love it for us too. If I felt like it was something that we could really manage and pull off, I would definitely be in support and I'd be actively working towards making it happen. I think the difference is that when white people choose to segregate, they always got to come back down the mountain, typically with tools and hoods in hand, and cause havoc on the people who are doing better than them elsewhere. Segregation does nothing but highlight what we could succeed at when we're at our best. And that in turn makes them jealous. And then their jealousy causes rage. And then they want to kill us all over again. So, yeah, you guys want to be up on a mountain in the Ozarks. And I see the threat of it reaching elsewhere because what they're doing is actually passing out Klan flyers and then recruiting people and then deciding to move into these settlements. So we know the premise of which you're moving for, right? Segregation under racial terms. Martin Luther King said at the very end of his life that he hated the fact that he ushered his people into a burning house. And so he knew back then that even integrating was going to be or had become so damaging to Black Americans that it was problematic. But do I think the solution is for them to move in the mountains and then what? I think it's a novel idea for them, but they're not going to really be successful at that here in the States either.
So I would say this, I actually support this. You know why I support it? I support it because there's already sundown towns that already exist. This is just an extension of those sundown towns that already exist. And so for them to act like this is something new and this is novel, it's not. We've been dealing with this and living with this for many, many moons now. And the difference is, as Tia pointed out, hopefully you don't feel the need to come down and burn, flood, destroyed by infrastructure, i.e. running highways through, or through other mechanisms such as bombing Black neighborhoods, Black towns, and whatnot, if we decide to do the same. Now, I will acknowledge that it may be more difficult for us to do the same simply because we don't necessarily have, as Tia pointed out, the infrastructure in place. But I don't necessarily think it's that we don't have the infrastructure in place. I think it's we don't have the wherewithal. We don't have the motivation. We don't have the drive to do so in some places, right? There's this one project I think it was in Houston. His name was Chris something. And he had this whole by the block, right? Same with Nipsey Hussle, right? By the block. But this Chris guy, I think it was Chris Senegal, if I recall correctly, but he was trying to get a entire community of just Black businesses, Black everything, hospitals, banks, everything. And he was looking for investors. And he was complaining about how it was really hard for him to get investors to invest in this ideal because at the end of the day, we've actually divested from our own community, whether we know or acknowledge it or not. There's too many of us who's willing to assimilate at the cost of the crumbs at the table. And I will say that I find it so fascinating because they did do it under a new flag, i.e., oh, this is our preference. Yeah. What? This is our preference. This is privacy. What? And I'm like, okay, go ahead. It's just racism in disguise. We got you. It's okay. You know, some people have made being racist okay in 2025. We're not going to name who those people are because I'm pretty sure we know who those people are. And so it's okay. Go ahead and put your hood on. Go ahead and put on a certain color hat. Go ahead and bring out the little tiki torches because I would rather see you than not know you coming. So I see you. I know you coming. And I appreciate knowing you coming. And I agree that MLK, when he said he integrated us into a burning house, this is why I honestly believe he was assassinated, because he started to realize the errors his ways. Because guess what? We don't have the same amount of black hospitals, black banks, black credit unions, black schools. Although we still got the HBCU, and as a proud HBCU grad, whoop, whoop, JSU, I appreciate the HBCUs that continue to exist. But let's not lie or acknowledge the fact that they're still trying to phase those HBCUs out. And so I say congratulations to you two, as in you two folks at the settlement who came up with this idea of turning to a preference and saying, yes, it's our preference. And then when we go with our preference, please don't let your jealousy and envy, because that's what this has always been about. Don't let that get your knickers in a bunch and you come and flood our communities and you come and do harm to our communities. Matter of fact, stay up in the Ozarks because y'all got the complexion for that cold ass weather. Stay up there. Stay up there. I support it.
So I'm a bit confused, right? Because on the one hand, you know, we don't think we have the wherewithal anymore like we used to in the past. On the other hand, we're scared of the same thing that happened in the past. Like, so for example, if it's like, okay, well, you know, we're not quite the same stock of black people we may have been once upon a time, right? Okay. But then at the same time, we're afraid of the same outcome at the same time. Because if we do that, then they're going to come and burn down our thing like Oklahoma Tulsa. Like they did. I'm kind of confused. Yeah. Right. Because I feel like, right, the same way that I think there's a credible argument that obviously we can't go back. We can only deal with whether or not this idea makes sense today, right? And I think if we do that, then I think the argument that they're going to automatically come for us and all that, I don't know that. That happened back then at a time where, yeah, there wasn't a bunch of TV, there wasn't a bunch of internet, there wasn't a bunch of Islam, you know, like in terms of like people, you hear about people getting turned over the internet to become an Islamic terror. Like, wow, that didn't happen back then, right? So what I'm saying is like back then, I get how people can be in proximity and see a thing and envy it, right? But is that going to happen today? Is that enough of a reason to why we should not aspire to do a thing, right? That's number one. Number two, like, I'm perplexed because we all know we're a bunch of sheep, right? The system was able to hoard a bunch of black people into things called projects. Because you can say that, come on, man. So you mean to tell me that we couldn't really socially engineer things differently if we had the will? Because I don't even think it's a question of wherewithal, to be honest with you. There's a bunch of different developers. There's people who got money. We just don't got the will to do it. You know what I'm saying? There's enough smart black people who are scientists and builders. Like, if we really wanted to go out there and create our own, we could. We have enough. We don't need everybody. You only really need about 10, 15, 20% of the people to really be productive and the rest of them to just not fuck the shit up too terribly. You know what I'm saying? So I think we got the wherewithal. I just don't think we got the will. Why? Because, yes, we have assimilated. It's very hard to draw distinctions because, like, I might feel comfortable over here with these diverse group of people that I might feel comfortable over here with just my folk. Because socioeconomically, some of us have also progressed in life, right? And then we got to deal with the realities of being in certain neighborhoods. Y'all ever wonder why it's only white and maybe white gay people that can gentrify a neighborhood? You ever think about that? Because if a rich black person or if a successful black person moved into that same black neighborhood, could they gentrify it? Is it because of the rich, or is it because of the white person, or the gay white person, or is it because of the other black people in the neighborhood who treat them differently when they move into these neighborhoods? Or the police who respond differently when they do, right? Like, so I think there's a myriad of complexities when we talk about the challenges that we face today because some of us just don't have the will or we don't care in regards to doing what's best for us. But I don't think it's a question of whether we can. And so that just leads me to the next question, which is this something that maybe should inspire us? I mean, I don't know. I find it interesting that we're in a state where people have the ability, the wherewithal, we're pro-black, but yet we don't want to think about putting towns together that reflect us, our cultures, our values, make sure that the school systems, I mean, you hear about people all the time having schools, charter schools or whatever, because they want to take their own education in their kid. Why shouldn't we? Like, I get our repugnance towards them doing it because of the history, but before I say they should do it, I got to ask Should I want to do this? Should I reserve the right to do this? Right? As long as I'm not hurting anyone in America, am I allowed to congregate amongst people that look like me, that reflect my values? Like, at what point in time is that okay before it becomes a problem? Because listen, I'm not going to Arkansas anytime soon. Right? They picked the right place because there's probably not niggas over there anyway. You know what I'm saying? So who are they really hurting for real? Now, if he was in Atlanta, it'd be a whole different story. Maybe that's why it's not in Atlanta. Right? Because maybe it just wouldn't work, right? But in certain places and nuggets, maybe it would. And maybe those people should have the right to move over there and do what the fuck it is they're doing, as long as they're not like fucking with other people, as long as they're not, keep taking people's rights away, et cetera, et cetera. So I do get the propensity for us to just be like, oh my God, this is crazy, but fuck them. You know what I'm saying? I ain't know about them anyway. I'm thinking like, shit, I had an idea like this. Like, we should have communities that care about us, and then we teach them stuff. And so I don't know. I get that. I think with Jay's question is a poignant one, because I do think that we can be, intrigued or outraged by it. But honestly, I think maybe it's time that we find a little inspiration in it, a little bit, a lot of it. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. Go ahead.
I think what we take for granted is that white people have the ability in the United States and the resources to be able to go and open their own settlement and finance it. When we decided to integrate in America, we gave up our schools. We gave up our businesses. They didn't come into our shit and say, come to these black schools and we're going to mix up. No, we went into their shit. And then we were forced to take what they gave us, which has rendered us extremely undereducated and under-resourced and marginalized. So when you talk about the ability and the wherewithal to do something, we have to have access. This would put us in that same position. Let's take a loan out from the bank, from the man, to go and live somewhere. And then when they decide they want their property, they land back, I defaulted, I couldn't pay, whatever happens, they can rip it from up under me. And that is a part of the problem. I use a theory in some of my clinical work, and it's basically saying that there had to be a point when Harriet Tubman was coming back down south after she had been north a number of times, that she realized that, hey, hooty hoo, we going, we leaving at 6, that everybody wasn't interested in going north, that some people were very content with the life they were living because that's all they ever knew, and they weren't interested in the risk that it took to get something and have something better. There was a percentage of us that did, but it was a small number, way less than what we think that was left on the plantations, right? So yes, there's still a small number of us that can look upward and see something great about possibly doing something like this, but we have been rendered, and I don't even use the word assimilated, because that means you had a choice in choosing to partake in someone's cultural values and norms and accepting them as your own or utilizing them as your own. We didn't have that because we came here without culture. We didn't have a choice but to pick up the things from them that we did, because we didn't have anything of our own to reference. And so when I think about this, it's like, it's great. It's a novel idea, but not only could we would have difficulty doing it on our own. I'm not saying it's impossible. We would have difficulty because the buy-in factor, but we'd also have to borrow money from Mr. Johnny. And I think that would put us right back in the same hole that we were in before we even considered this an option.
I do believe there are problems. So first, you guys made a lot of good points. I think that as a child who grew up in Mississippi in a very segregated, in a school that was only integrated when my oldest brother went there, like that was the first year integrated. I think he graduated like 87 or something. So, he was like, let's say it probably didn't, the school that I graduated from probably did not integrate until, let's say, 1984. Right, 1985, 1984, something like that. So, I've experienced racism in its truest face. Okay, and I've learned very quickly the worst place to be is a place where people don't want you. You're not gonna have a good time, even if you can define and defend your right to be there. It's something about being around folk who don't want you there. It just kills your vibe. So I'm fine if they want to have a little dusty community out somewhere. I'm cool with that. I think it's great because I would much rather know where the people who hate me are so I can move around them than for people to be in my face and hate me and pretend like they cool and they want to be in the same city as me. No, go do something else. That's cool. Because truth be told, when black people had a problem with separate but equal, our issue was not the separate. We were good with separate. Our problem was we were paying the same taxes, sometimes even more, but we weren't getting the equal when it came to funding to our schools. So then we were like, well, shoot, let's go to your school then. So your school got all the money. But then what happened then was they started white flight. Now they're moving out of the schools and defunding the schools as they move. They're still doing it now with charter programs. It's still happening. Nothing has really changed except the time. And so what we need right now is we do need a black push. We do need a response. And we don't need a response that gets back at them for what they're doing. We need a response that goes, oh, cool. That's what the game has evolved to. Play on, player, game on. Can we do it? Yes, we can do it, Tia. No, can we move the whole collective of black people? No. That's why black people get tired of talking about black people moving forward. Because every time you bring it up, one black person goes, and it ain't got to be Uncle Ruckus. One black person goes, it'll never happen, man. Black people never get on one page. We always this, we always that, we always. And you know what? If you're looking monolithically, maybe it's true. But I'm saying if you want to move a flock, you don't grab all the birds. You just take the one in front and direct its path, and the ones that follow, you move a flock by moving individuals. We're going to move the collective of the black consciousness, not by moving as a unit, not because one black man stands up with a vision and all black people listen. It's not going to happen. But if we can just lock down our families and our households, if we can start there, being an enterprise to ourselves and our household. I'm working on a plan. I'm going to release it in the next 12 months. Every family should be able to make themselves self-sufficient. When a family becomes a income generating self-sufficient entity, it can now work with other families. And then we can begin to create our community and our infrastructure and our own commerce like we used to have. But we can't do that until we get our own. As long as we're begging somebody else to give to us, as long as we're consumers and not producers, we will always be at the mercy of the person who is producing. And whatever you got, start there with your family. So it's doable, y'all. It's doable. I personally say, fine, go make their city, right? We're going to do ours better. We never, ever needed to be mixed in with anybody. We welcomed it. We did it in Europe with the Moors. We did it all over this globe. We mix it. We're like, oh, we got some knowledge. Hey, let's share with you. But y'all don't want to bang with us? Cool. Because we was here before all, we'll be here after all. First of all, servants of all, we will definitely transcend all. I heard it from somebody. My point is, don't get your panties in a bunch, folks. It's just time to get about our job, right? I know it feels heavy moving the people. You don't move a whole ocean. You move the drops, right? So we are going to get it, and we're going to get on track. And the way to do it is to stop being pushed in the margins. We have to build the equal for ourselves, piece by piece, if it takes that. And then we can build something that we can pass on to future generations, and we can then begin to rebuild Black excellence the way it was always intended.
So I was going to say that, it's actually interesting because there actually is a Black family. When you talked about Black families, it triggered a memory of something that I read about a family I believe it was in Freedom, Georgia, where they actually had 19 Black families come together. It could have been 20, but I think it was 19 Black families come together, purchase like 100 acres of land for the purpose of creating a safe haven for Black people, right? And so now, though, it'll say like people of color, but originally it was for Black people. And it was all about building the infrastructure and putting it like through using co-ops, right? And so so not only co-ops, but like co-ops for food supply, co-op for utilities, education, even banking. And there are Black banks, and it's just not a lot. They're very far and few in between that we could get loans from for the purpose of doing this. And so, but using the Freedom Georgia model, which I think was, like I said, 2020, I believe it was, is a possibility. And there are places that are coming along those, like even using the USDA, although with the grants now being put on hold, but there also was USDA farm grants that you can use, particularly as first-time home buyers, to purchase land for the purpose of building a house and so forth. And so there are resources out there. The one thing that Black communities have a tendency when we become along these mind frame of self-sufficiency, we have a tendency to be surveilled by the government. We have a tendency to have some folks who come in to try to dissuade, disrupt, and corrupt what's currently taking place. And I think that's something that has to be accounted for when we move forward. there's another landowner in Texas, I believe, who talked about how he should have moved silently because the minute he started talking about what he was doing, that's when he started getting problems with getting permits. That's when he started getting problems with, like all of a sudden there was always some type of issue and so forth on his property that he had already purchased. And so that's another thing. Maybe there's a time where we should move silently when we're doing things like that. And so since we are a solution oriented podcast, I think there's a possibility in this. It's just a matter of one, starting co-ops. Like we can do it locally. We can start co-ops, growing our own food, doing bartering exchanges and stuff like that. There are small things that we can take within our own community to start this process if this is truly where we're going to go and we want to go. And to be honest, we should go. There should be some self-sufficiency in regards to that community vibe, that community safe haven.
So no, I wanted to push back on this paranoia. Okay, I get it. There are people doing some of this. You don't hear about them. They're just doing it within their small communities, right? So we can't pretend like some of this isn't already happening. A friend of mine, he had a whole community of people who were having their kids in charter school. They decided to do a private situation. Like there are people who are tapping into some of this. We just don't hear about them, which brings me to the other point too. So I feel like when we say stuff like, oh, as soon as we tell other people, I feel like those are fear tactics a little bit. Low key, like if you're just legit, you have momentum behind you. Yes, are there going to be haters out there? Absolutely. But to the level of which it seems like this all boogeyman is going to always, I get that that does happen, but I just don't think the boogeyman is as much of a problem as we make it seem to be. And frankly, I'd rather face the boogeyman at some point than just be fearful of even doing anything so I don't have to face him. I want to face that motherfucker if he exists then. And let me conquer that shit too. Right? So I just feel like we got to have the attitude of we going to push through whatever thing we got to push through to make it happen. But that's not the problem. It goes back to the whole will thing. I'm going to tell you why. We talk about, oh, we got to get money from the white man. Shit, if the loan terms make sense, yeah, I'm going to get the loan. I got a loan for my house, I got a loan for my car. So the fuck what? Right? If you do it correctly, you won't have to have a loan forever. There are some loans you can pay off with no prepayment penalty, right? So there's ways that you could use the system, even if the system isn't to your advantage, but some of it is set up in such a way that it has to be agnostic enough to allow you to participate, right? So that means you can get a loan to start up a business, or get up a loan to start a community, then fuck it, make it do what it do. Because the other part is, how much trillions of dollars do we spend on bullshit per annum? And then we claim we ain't got it. It ain't like we ain't got it. No, we do be having it. It's just that we be quick to give it up. Like if niggas just say, hey, you know what? That's what, 50 million black people? If 50 million black people say, for every black person, I'm gonna give $1 per month towards some black people liberation cause or whatever. Start doing the math. It don't even take a lot, for real, for real. But here's the problem, because I disagree with you. I do think people are doing it individually, but no, we do need somebody to follow because we're followers. You know what I'm saying? It has to be like a movement to where like people can get inspired. Like, Barack Obama, to me, his presidency was the last time I saw a movement that galvanized a group of people for any sustained period of time. Now, whether or not people love what he did with it or not, but if you lived through that experience, it was a movement afoot. Even Bernie had like little traces of it when he was running up for presidency, right? So it's not like you can't build momentum around a cause. It just takes a right mixture of things. If the T app can pop off to the fucking point that we're talking about, you mean to tell me we can't figure out the right mixture of pop culture, the right mixture of personalities, the right mixture of movement to get people afoot? It doesn't take everybody, y'all. It don't. It only takes a small group of people to make a concerted effort who knows how to tap in to social media and marketing to get the rest of the sheep to rock the fuck out. How many people was out here, A minor, off of a fucking Drake beat? Come on, man. That's the type of fucking influence we have. And Kendrick was riding that shit out for a fucking 6 to 8 months. The West Coast was rejuvenated off of a rap beef. You know what I'm saying? So listen what they tell me, okay? My point is that I think if we understand culture enough, we do understand that if they're using the tools to influence us, to get us to move in a certain type of way, why can't we use those tools too? Right? So it's just like, we always look at things like, oh my God, they're going to do all these things, but the same things they can use against us, we can low-key probably use to our favor if we just had the will to figure it the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? You mentioned Harriet. How many Harriets were there? There weren't that many, sis. Right? But they didn't stop her from still doing her fucking thug thizzle. And all the people who was willing to rock out with her. Right? So I'm just saying, like, I get it. When we hear about segregation, we think about it from the past. But if we at the same time think about the ways that integration was a problem, then why would we not consider it today? It's possibly not integration, but just how we choose to move, because we should have more resources, or we don't. We should have more information, or we don't. We should have more will, or we don't, man. Like, we got to stop bullshit. We either want to make it happen or not make it happen, y'all. I'm feeling like we don't really want to make it happen for real. You know what I mean? But just like the rest of this conversation, does anybody else have anything else on here? All the pro-segregation people raise their hands. Black fist. Yeah. Hey, in principle or in idea, not in practice. Right? But you know something else that makes a lot of sense, I think, both in principle and in practice? Apparently, the younger, well, maybe not the younger, there's a certain age range, the sweet spot where if you get married, the likelihood of success, long-term relationship maybe working out, the divorce, decreasing. Apparently, the golden age is 28 to 32, apparently by a sociologist from Utah who said, hey, man, we found that around that age, hey, it's a golden, it's beautiful, bellissimo, right? But 33, little gray area, right? So what are y'all thoughts in regards to, does it make sense that there is a sweet spot in terms of when people are coming together and choosing to form bonds? Like, maybe is it too young? Is it too old? What are y'all thoughts about 28 to 32 being the sweet spot for people to get hitched?
So, as someone who got married early in life, i.e., 21, I actually kind of agree with the whole 28. As a matter of fact, if I had to do it again, I would wait till I'm at least 25 because you're still kind of developing who you are. You're still trying to figure out the ins and outs of life. And it's a little bit harder, I think, when you have to develop and who you are when you're with someone because they're also in the same process of learning who they are and developing themselves too. It's basically you have two individuals who are partially formed. And as a person who believes in lifelong learning, I think that this was a lesson of almost, I want to call it struggle a little bit because we basically had to mature together, right? And considering at the age in which our frontal lobe and all our brain fully developed, I also think that so happened to play into that because apparently we are actually fully mature at the age of 27, brain activity wise. So 28 to 32, I believe that we are able to make those logical, rational decisions and move forward. But more importantly, you already recognize what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You're at the point where you should have a job or whatever you should be somewhat in your career. You shouldn't be floundering, trying to figure out what you still need to do in life. And to be honest, if it's as a woman, if marriage is your goal and you know you want to get married, your early 20s, sure, do whatever's clever. But by 25, stop playing around. Start dating with intentions because if this is the sweet spot, then go ahead and make it happen. Now, I'm not discouraging marrying earlier or marrying later because currently in our society, we actually have a tendency to marry later, especially women, and to include having babies now even later. I think last week, Nick, you mentioned that women in their 40s for the first time ever are outpacing in pregnancies compared to teens. And so I think that this study come at a pretty much appropriate time considering where we are in this so-called gender war that we're currently residing in. So I say kudos with it. I think it actually helps guide people to start dating with intentions, particularly if you're a woman.
I think it's great. I think it's great because I actually married my first wife, my late wife, around that same age range. I think we would have still been married had she not passed away. Don't get me wrong, the marriage wasn't perfect. Every marriage has problems, but there's something about like growing in the same rhythm with the person that you're with. And when people are older people tend to want somebody who looks like what they could pull when they were younger, right? And then, so there's that dissonance that happens as you get older. It's harder for the older women to be as appealing to the men their age, and it's harder for the older men to be as appealing probably to the women their age. And so there's this dissonance that happens. People start looking for somebody 10 years younger, 10 years older, and then that gets really crazy because then those people aren't in the same time zones, like in terms of phases of their lives. I know a couple of couples with 10 years between them, and one of them's like on there, hey, let's get our legacy together, and the other one's like, yo, turn up, it's Thursday night, right? But they're 10 years apart, and that makes sense in the seasons of their lives. So I think that number is really good. I mean, personally, that was my number. I told my wife, first wife, I was like, listen, let's go and get married because I want to have our last kid by 32. So when the child turns 18, going off to college, I'm 50, I'm done. Like I had done the math and everything. So, I mean, shout out to everybody whenever they choose to have their family. As long as you're raising them with love, that's all that really matters. But I do think starting earlier is better. I think it allows you to grow with the person, allows you to mature. And I think when you marry someone that young, even as you all age together, I think you still kind of see them as that person that they were when you got married, right? They still kind of hold that value with you, and you guys grow up together. As opposed to when you're 45 and you're looking at it out there at the dating pool, and you're like, "Ugh, she is not held up well. Nah, that's not aging well. Look at her mama. That's not. No, no, no." So then you end up like Shannon Sharp. Okay, I'm done there. Y'all go ahead.
Not look at her mama, cause I was kinda extra. No, I get it. I actually when I hear these kind of stats, I'm always a little bit of a cynic. And I think that because as times change, we're always evolving and moving. And so is the social norms and kind of what we do. So I think earlier in this century, it was advantageous to marry young and to, have all these benefits because women weren't afforded a lot of things. So for that benefit, women were like, yeah, I'm 18, college is not necessarily what I'm looking at. And this is an option. Marriage was security in a lot of ways. So now when I hear this, new stat about being 28 to early 30s, I think it kind of fits because if you really think about it from a psychology standpoint, your prefrontal cortex, that memory and decision making place right there that kind of regulates all of your emotional mood states, it doesn't really fully formally finish growing in a man until 26. And that's no shade, that's science. So, because of that, if you think about the fact that a person isn't completely as fully developed, they're not going to be making the best decisions. They're not always going to be, in the right direction of their thought processes. And so, if we're waiting till 28 and there's a maturity factor for both people, hopefully, if they decide to do college or they're ingrained in a career somewhere, I think it'll lead to more success for sure. So, I'm here for it.
This is, as I was hearing you talk, Tia, this is the part where I'm perplexed. I feel like this is my perplexed episode, right? Because, like, for example, biology tells us that, let's say, for example, a young lady can have children at a very early age, like the cycle begins where her body's prepared, right? But you mentioned like the, frontal cortex, whatever the fuck you call that at 25 doesn't fully develop, right? Cool. And then around 35, it becomes high risk, right? So it seems like if I'm going to follow that logic, maybe the first 12 years, what's even the point? Right. And then you have 10 more years of fruitfulness when if we're judging when we should do certain things by this whole prefrontal cortex thing. Right. Because for me, looking back on human history, I don't know that the cavemen were like, hey, knock, knock. No. I don't think people were doing that. Like, no. I don't think they had the language. But now we got prefrontal cortex, whatever lobe, that they're right. But anyways, so that's why I say I'm perplexed because when we use this argument, and the funny thing is, I am for people getting married younger. And I do think 28, 32 is a good sweet spot because of where we are in the modern world. Do I think ideally it's a sweet spot in general? No, I think it should be younger, right? This is somebody who got married at 27 and my wife was 24 when we got married. Ironically, when we kind of reached maybe a different point in our relationship, both of us would have been in this 28 to 32 range. But we were married to get there. There's a possibility that had I not been married around this time, I don't know that I would ever be married necessarily, right? Especially when how things are trending in terms of telling people, oh, you got to do this first. You got to get your career first, right? The way that we socialize young people, I think we really got to look at that overall if we're going to have this conversation. If a person is expected to join the military, not expected, if a person can make the choice to join the military at the age of 18 and fight and kill for their country, there's a certain level of expectation that we're having for them. Whether or not their prefrontal, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is, developed or not, right? Or when they choose to, drink alcohol. So we give young people a lot of responsibility that we don't prepare them for, is what I'm saying. Right? I don't think that the traditional model of having to go through 18, many of us didn't even learn how to balance a proper checkbook, even with 12 years of a fucking education in front of us. And so now these kids got so much more to learn, so much more they're being exposed to. When I was growing up, we had to sneak magazines to look at porn. Now it's on X. The fuck? It's funny because my kid is 4, but he looks like a fucking teenager. Like the way he moves around, it's not regular 4-year-old shit that used to be back in the day. You know, he's having moods and he's communicating about his feelings. What the fuck is going? He's not even 4 yet. So what I'm saying is that we're the ones who want to advocate for this moving the shit back when we really need to be moving the shit up some, including marriage, right? But here's what I like about the stat though, because if a person is 28 getting married, I would suggest you get to know the person at least about 3-4 years before you say I do. Me personally. Some of y'all can discern a motherfucker in 1 year. Okay. Good luck with that. But some of us need about 3-4. And even for those of us who had 3-4, we still need about 3-4 more to be sure. You know what I'm saying? Like, I met my wife, we was dating for about 3-4 years. I loved her, my God. And then we were married for about 4. It was like, touch and go. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I feel like the reason why the age to me is less important than how we mature, how we teach, how we grow people to be prepared. Right. So I do think that the age makes sense because that's just where we are. But what doesn't make sense though is if you're a woman at 32, want to have kids, and let's say you want to do it naturally, you want to have the full and natural experience. So now you got to meet the dude, build a relationship, get with him, have a relationship, maybe have a marriage and then have kids. Like, how does that math add up? I know the science is changing the game. Listen, I'm a person, we're a family who benefited from that, but we were fortunate. There's a lot of people who go through the IVF cycle, multiple of cycles, some of whom don't have the money for that. So for all y'all just thinking that y'all finna have the outcomes that you might see on Instagram, I hate to break it to you. That's not always going to be the case, right? So I hear y'all because I think it does make sense. I'm just saying we can raise our kids to be smarter, to be better prepared, to make better choices, right? And if marriage, which I think, it's funny because the other day, like I am conscious of showing affection in front of my son so that he can see what this looks like. I am happy that I can be here and maybe be a model of, hey, this family thing is a bit of all right. You know what I'm saying? You might want to try it when you get older. So I hope that for him, he's going to be more mature than I was, more prepared than I was, but he might even be the same age, right? 27, 28, because he met Shorty, right? They built together for about 3-4 years and he recognized the value. And I'm going to say this and land on this particular point. Y'all don't recognize that this is the most fruitful years to find the type of nigga that you say you want, low key, right? Because some of y'all want the end, but y'all ain't there yet. You know what I'm saying? So when you're both kind of at a stage in life where y'all both like, hey, look at the world, we outside, we building, you might have be more open to building with someone. I think it's a great time to build with someone. I get why you might not want to be 35 building with somebody, but 20-something, 25, it's the best time to build with somebody. You know what I'm saying? So I would just encourage people to like, young people in particular, and I'll land with this, even though I said that before and I lied. There was a young man that was at Best Buy. I ended up buying a phone today from him. And you know why? He asked me what I do. I said, hey, I do marketing. I got a podcast. What is it about? Like, it's about relationships and marriage. He's like, yeah, you know what? I'm with a girl right now. And I think I'm going to marry her. He was like maybe about 20-something. Right? It reminded me of why I do this podcast, right? Because it's like we want to encourage young people not to turn away from marriage. Marriage is a beautiful thing. It's just that I think people put it in a certain box. And it doesn't have to be in that box. I'm going to wait till I have all my ducks in a row and be a perfect man to finally settle down. It don't got to be that, fam, right? Because nobody's expecting to be perfect in your 20s. You can fuck up a little bit and still build something in your 20s. When you get to be in your 30s, not so much. So why not? So anywho, I bought the phone. I was there for an hour, and I hope he marries that girl, because if he does, I'm going to find him. You lied to me to sell me these goddamn phones, but go ahead. I'm sorry. It was a tangent.
I have a little bit of pushback in regards to the whole
Pushback there.
First of all,
You like that? That was nice, right? That was no.
It was a good little razzle dazzle. I see.
A little razzle dazzle. Something different. Okay, thank you.
Black people never lived in caves. First of all, that's the first thing. We were hunters and gatherers, and that matters. And then I think what you literally kind of proved my point, talking about the evolution and the changes over time, because what has the brain in the last 2 million years done? It's evolved. And so, yes, it does matter that now today we can consider the prefrontal cortex.
Now you having a hard
Now
time.
you got me messed up. And consider these things as good factors when we think about kind of what marriage looks like, because you want someone who is a good decision maker. You want someone who is a leader. When you try to marry someone at 21 and 22 and expect him to lead the house and know exactly what to do, then you might be leading yourself down a road of disappointment. I had a crackhead tell me on like year 4 of my marriage, no lie. He said, when you reach year 5, that's when you know you can make this last for forever, but not until then. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, because in 5 years, you've endured and went through everything, the ups, the downs, money issues, whatever else may come, and you've learned how to work through them. And at that point, you can say this is a true marriage. But keep in mind, people go back and get their vows renewed and all that stuff. People think that it's just a token of appreciation or love, but really, it's because the person you are today is not the person that I married 20 years ago. I want to marry and commit to this person that you've grown into being while we've been together and say that I love you just as much as I love you then, even though you've changed. And that is the premise of a vow renewal. So I think when you think about like the brain and how it works and how it contributes to emotional stability and regulation, if you want a good partner who's not toxic, who's not narcissistic or caught up on some attachment issues, you want to make sure that they've done the work. Go to therapy, call me, right? But you can also say that I'm 22, meeting my partner at 23, I've graduated at 25, and I can look at marriage at 28 because I've done the work to kind of prepare the foundation for this house to be built upon. And that's more important to me. Like, I want to know that you're in a place where you can make decisions and be a leader and do what it takes to be successful in this marriage because longevity is the key, right?
I feel that's a great last word. Does anybody else not want to let Tia have the last word? See how I because they say I always got to have the last word. I'm like, nah, Tia she nailed that. Nailed it. Anybody else on that? No, well, if not, then any final thoughts? It looks like we're going to get out of here. Look at the S&M's too excited about it. Yes, I go to sleep at a decent hour. Any final thoughts? I feel like, let's start with you, S&M, since you're ready to go so quickly. Yeah.
It's not that I was just ready to get out of here. It's actually because I really want to talk about my final thoughts is pertaining to marriage because we are a marriage-minded podcast and I love marriage-minded individuals. And so I wanted to provide some little tidbits and say, one of the reasons why I love marriage-minded individuals and support marriage is because it's one of the first ways to guarantee long-term, aka generational wealth. It also another way to guarantee, well, in some cases, not so much because that emotional safety that some families sometimes don't have. But hopefully, if the family have done the work, i.e. the husband and wife before they became husband and wife, they've done the work, then that provides emotional safety. Because a lot of times what we're dealing with is at the end of this fucked up children. The children mad because the parents are fucked up because we never dealt with our trauma and then our parents' never dealt with their trauma. And so we keep passing that trauma down. But if we all come as healed adults into the relationship and we have, so in addition to creating generational wealth, we actually create that emotional safety for our children so that they can continue our legacy. And so for women, I really want us to stop glamorizing this whole dating freedom, like, oh, I got so much freedom and I can jump from this man, this man, this man, this man. When in reality, if you're really looking for marriage, that actually may look like indecision. And that may be something that you might want to take a look at yourself and reflect on why you may be having commitment issues. And so, but either way it goes, I understand marriage is not for everybody. But as somebody who's been married for 26 years, I for sure love it and support it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, S&M. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. What I mean, on the 20 train. You know what I mean? Jay, final thoughts before we get up out of here.
Yeah, I'm definitely pro marriage. I'm so pro marriage. I'm in my third one, so go for that. But as I look over,
Third
there's
time's a charm.
context. Yeah, it's context, which is really my point here. Like all these stories, all these issues in society, context is so important. And as I look right here, the context I'm seeing a lot of a lack of grace, right? Between T apps and stranded vacations and white only towns and public divorces, it feels like we're living in a world with zero tolerance, zero grace, zero room for mistakes and errors. Everybody's focused on independence. Everybody's focused on protecting their peace. But relationships are supposed to be about interdependence, right? And about being vulnerable, finding the person you can be vulnerable with. So it's really weird what we're doing. Like, how can you expect a relationship to survive in that environment? Like, are we building our lives so self-contained and nobody can hurt us? Because at the end of that, we are going to wake up independent. And yeah, we can get there and back and do whatever we want to do and have the life we always wanted. But will we have anybody to share it with? That's the question. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you for that, JT. I mean, I felt like you did such a great job. You got another one for us? Bad to bad. You got a twofer?
I support marriage, but I also support being single and happy. So I'll end with that. No matter what you decide to do it the best, love you the most, and make sure that you're enjoying life because it's short.
And you know what? girl, what a perfect alley-oop, right? Because my final thought actually was on Deion Sanders. For those who don't know, recently Deion, I think, announced that he was cancer-free, which was a surprise to many people because I don't think a lot of us knew that he had cancer in the first place, right? In terms of, I think he was dealing with bladder cancer. He had some other issues, but I think most people were surprised that, wow, because, this Deion, right? And, they say you should check on your strong friends. And I say that because I don't know how many people knew he was dealing with it. And I think sometimes when people are like really proud or boisterous or outgoing, they tend to deal with their issues privately, right? Because there's a part of their public persona that maybe doesn't want to show that level of weakness. But the thing that resonated with me about Deion too was we're all getting older, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Time and things happen. And kudos to him for being able to just have a strong face about it. Because that's one thing I do appreciate about Deion's energy. I don't know him personally or whatever. When you hear him talk, there's a certain level of confidence, a certain level of faith a conviction that he speaks with that I think a lot of people get turned off by, right? But even those people kind of had a little bit more empathy towards him because I think they sense a little bit of weakness, not even in a bad way, but it's like sometimes when people come across a certain type of way, maybe they're Herculean, and sometimes people hate on them for that. And sometimes the only way that you can kind of see them as human is for them to be going through a human experience. And I feel like I've seen some of that this week in wake of people finding out about Deion. So with that being said, I just think that a lot of us are getting older. It resonated with me just for who he is and how he dealt with the whole ordeal. So I want to wish him well. I want to wish anybody out there dealing with cancer, because it hits us all in different ways sometimes. And so kudos to him and his family and loved ones. And shame on the people who were trying to make Karuchi his little girlfriend because she showed some support towards him. Y'all are messy as fuck. And we were going to talk about it, but we chose not to. But the point is, y'all wrong for that. But anywho, shout out to Fuck Cancer, by the way, while we're here. With that being said, on behalf of Delvin, who's having fun times on Carnival, not Carnival, on behalf of TMB, Jay, and SNM, I'm your boy, Nick Nice. We will see y'all next season. Actually, it's not true. We're going to see y'all before then. Matter of fact, I got a couple of quick announcements. Don't forget, we got the merch, y'all. Pam, 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 pam. Check out the merch, the Emotional Ears merch. We got that new designs for you, Cougar Kitty and all that good stuff. We got the merch. Pam, 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 pam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. And the comment section. Hopefully, y'all ready. And I think that's it, right? Did I miss anything, you guys? Oh, and we got off-season conversations coming soon. We'll be back in September for season 6. And we got some more surprises in the meantime for August. I think that's everything, right? S&M, did I forget anything?
It is indeed everything. You got it covered. Pew,
All
pew,
right,
pew,
y'all.
pew.
Pew, pew, pew.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, I got jokes before we start getting too far down. We'll see y'all when we see y'all. Y'all be easy.
Peace.
Peace.